Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 19, 2025 Site Plan Review Committee Subgroup Meeting for the RiverHouse project. For the record, I am Daniel Weir. I am co-chairing the project. We'll do introductions, but I'm also joined by Tony, now I'm blanking, Tony Striner, who is the newly appointed co-chair of this project as well. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting tonight, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the planning, I'm reading a script if you can't tell, per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7, 2022. Members of the SPRC subgroup for the RiverHouse project are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient, I am hearing feedback, which I can deal with, but I want to make sure that we're not subjecting people online to any squawking or anything. But I'm not hearing any objections from anyone online. So, okay. I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the SPRC webpage, the project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notification sent to SPRC email subscribers. Additionally, there's a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. Do we have any phone numbers at this point? We do have one. Okay, I will speak more about participating by dial-in momentarily. For members of the subgroup joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. If you are on the phone, please keep your phones, please keep your phones and devices regardless muted until you're called upon, and turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees, please turn off your video feed. I'll address in a moment when it is appropriate to turn it on. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active for two purposes: for SPRC subgroup members who need technical assistance, and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. I will also note, this is a little out of order, but if you have opened the agenda document from the SPRC webpage, you might note that SPRC meeting number 3 is listed as October 24, 2024. That's obviously an error, but to alleviate any confusion and confirm if you were looking at the agenda on the staff report from the SPRC webpage, the section that is highlighted is tonight's agenda. It should say May 19, 2025. You will notice that it is serially between January 16 and June 26. I'm sure that error will be corrected, but that's where you'll see the agenda tonight if you're looking at that document. If subgroup members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed on and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I'll monitor the video feed that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak, and I will use the raised hand function to determine who has raised their hand first. If subgroup members are participating via phone without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in with you if you wish to be recognized since you don't have the video feed. Do we have anyone who is part of the subgroup who is participating via phone specifically? And you may have to hit *6 to unmute. Okay. For our members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you'll be called on to speak at the end of the meeting, and will be allotted up to 2 to 3 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter your name in the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name if in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. Mr. Rob Gibson, I understand, is coordinating that. There are 2 documents that are circulating. Please make sure that if you are signing up to give public comment, that you sign on specifically the public comment sign up list, not just the sign-in list, which is how you can be assured that you will receive email communications and other updates about this project going forward. Lastly, a reminder that this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. I'm going to go around the room and we'll do introductions. We'll do people at the table first, or adjacent to the table. Then we will get members of the subgroup that are participating virtually, and then we will give an opportunity for people who are in the room who would wish to do so, just to stand up, say your name, and then we will proceed with our presentation. So again, I am Daniel Weir. I'm representing the Planning Commission, and I'm the co-chair of this project.
Hi, my name is Tony Striner. I'm also co-chairing from the Planning Commission.
Adam Watson, Arlington County Planning Division.
Eric Berkey, Planning Commission.
Richard Rebb, representing the representative, neighboring property.
Allie Reed with the applicant group.
Hi, Kedrick Whitmore. I'm with Venable LLP, representing the applicant.
Hi, Jessica D. with condo representative for Pentagon Ridge Condo Association.
Gary Shinners, representing the Park and Rec Commission.
Joe Trevette, the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission.
This works. Okay. Sohail Hussain, Transportation Commission.
Temley Peterson, Planning Commission.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
Jim Blantelme, Planning Commission. Nick Giacobbe, representing Aurora Highlands Civic Association.
Tarcy Dunlop, representing the Crystal City Civic Association.
Jeffrey Williams, Crystal Pentagon Cities Council.
Hi, I'm Rosamunda Osgo, representing the RiverHouse condominium.
And then online, we have Carolyn Hayes.
Carolyn Haynes with the Forestry and Natural Resource Commission.
And Pam Van Hine.
Hi, Pam Van Hine, Pedestrian Advisory Committee, talking to you from Portland, Oregon.
We'll take the opportunity to allow those who are in the room to introduce themselves. We'll start here and just go around the first and then make our way back, like waiting in line for a roller coaster.
Lisa with Lassard with the applicant.
Bella St. John Day with Bradley Site Design with the applicant.
Hi, Matt Ginnivan, JBG Smith.
Hi, Craig Seacott, JBG Smith.
Hi, I'm William Stranges. I'm a resident of the representative.
I'm Joe Marie Stranges, also a resident at the representative.
Carol Weiser, also a resident at the representative.
Judy Richards, also the representative.
And finally, David Richards, representative as well.
My name is Phil Akers. I am a resident of Arlington RiverHouse.
Anika Montgomery, Housing Commission.
David Osgo, resident, 18th Street.
Suzanne Boisseau, property owner at Pentagon Ridge.
Emma Gonzalez, JBG Smith.
And we don't, just to confirm, we don't have anyone on tonight from housing or from Anika. Okay, great. Anika, if you would like to, you could sit closer, or it would be nice to have you closer to the table. If nothing else, you could sit at this spot up here next to Mr. Gibson. Certainly wherever you wish, but I want to make sure that everyone who's on the roster is either at or near the table. And thank you, Commissioner Montgomery. And do we have anyone from Disability or Public Art or HRLB? I didn't think so, but I want to check. Okay. Our first presentation will be from the applicant. So, Mr. Whitmore.
Great, thank you. We'll share our presentation here.
Did we hear something? Sorry, Kat, did we hear something from online?
I don't know what it was.
Okay. And
yeah, somebody's unmuted.
thank you.
Muted.
All right. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore.
Great, thank you.
Folks online, please stand by for 1 second. We're going to switch the presentation.
Sure. We're gonna take a up to 1 minute seated break.
Thank you.
Nothing like trying to bring up a presentation while 30 people are waiting. Thanks, everybody, for being here this evening. We're excited to bring you.
Just could you maximize your screen?
There's a lag. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We're excited to bring you our updated proposal for the RiverHouse neighborhood. As you'll see on the next slide, we've been at this for a long time, since 2022, just after the adoption of the sector plan. And I'd note that late last year and early this year, we've made some significant changes to the plans and what's being approved, and we're going to talk through that here tonight. So the next slide is a quick run through of the agenda for this evening. I won't dwell on any of these topics in detail, but we're going to be discussing specifically 3 sites: the for sale townhomes at Land Bay S and the multifamily buildings at C1 and N1. And that's important that we're looking at those buildings specifically, and I'll explain why here in a moment. Here's a slide showing the ultimate full build out of the phase development site plan, or PDSP, for the entirety of the RiverHouse neighborhood. We've been reviewing planning items like height and density, as well as practical items like transportation and utilities on a PDSP-wide basis for the entirety of the site. However, we are not seeking approval of all of these new buildings right now. And this is part of that significant change that I mentioned to you earlier. So you'll see on the next slide, we are only seeking approval of actionable final site plans for 3 areas: the for sale townhomes in Land Bay S, the multifamily building in C1, and the multifamily building in N1. All of those other new buildings that you saw on the prior slide are only going to be permitted if and when an additional public review process and approval by the county board takes place. That is a change from the prior application that you saw that would have allowed all of those buildings to be built at the conclusion of this process. So on the next slide, I'll touch briefly on sustainability for these sites. Each of these properties, the for sale townhomes and the 2 multifamily buildings, will achieve LEED Gold, and the N1 multifamily building will be participating in the Green Building Incentive Program. So with that, I'm going to move on to some discussion of Land Bay S, the townhomes. It is a product type that you don't see very often, right? We get asked all the time, where are the for sale units? Here are the for sale units. The reason you don't see this product type all the time is because they're difficult, often from an engineering perspective and a financing perspective. We are proud to be able to provide a large number of townhomes here, and we want to talk about some of those design issues we've been speaking about with staff, specifically to the 2 sticks on the eastern portion of the site. Those are, because north is to the right, those would be planned south here. They're the ones directly across from Virginia Highlands Park. And specifically, we've been discussing design issues related to how they are loaded. And we'll talk about that here on some of the slides coming up. So you'll see on the next slide a detail of our proposal for this area. Okay. Just as a reminder, before we jump into that, this is what it looks like today. We've got about 100+ feet of concrete and paving. Not sure where it went. Looks like it kicked us. There you go. Okay, great. And about 100 feet plus of concrete and paving, and no more than 12 feet of buffering at the property line. So not a great condition today, and one that we're going to significantly improve with our proposal. The next slide will show you our initial proposal here specifically that's come in with this application. Talking through this a little bit when it comes up. We've advanced it. It's taken a minute. It's laggy, extremely.
If it's possible while we're waiting for it. Yes, I don't.
Sure. It'll.
I've been watching and he hasn't
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's difficult to talk through this without the slide.
I've heard from a number of people that why the Wi-Fi in the room is really dragging. So apologies to everyone, the applicant and those present, for the technical delays. Are the changes, how significant are the changes? Would we?
They're fairly significant. I mean, these slides that we're talking about here,
these are the ones
are
okay.
added in.
Okay.
We could potentially put this at the end and talk through the stuff that Mr. Watson does have, but I think this is a pretty important element of the overall design and something directly on point with the building placement we're discussing tonight.
That might be the issue. Can you admit her back in?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, great. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, this is what we've currently proposed for the townhomes, a section. And you'll see this is the section with the proposal for the front-loaded garages. Working from the left to the right, the south to the north, you'll see that this has a generous buffer and green ribbon area to the left of the townhome with planting on either side, the townhome area, and then the front-load garages with a sidewalk area, a planting strip, the new 15th Road, and then planting and sidewalk on the other end. I'll note that we really like this design because it has three different pedestrian points. You've got the kind of leftmost, which gives you a forest walk through the green ribbon. You've got the one in front of the townhomes, which will give you the opportunity to kind of see your neighbors, see some of the activity happening with the residential, and then another sidewalk on the other side. I think what you'll hear from staff, and I won't speak for them, but I think you'll hear that they have some concerns with this design as a result of there being a number of curb cuts for these garages and some concerns about the survivability of some of the plantings there in front of the building. So, this is proposed initially to be a public street, and I think that's driving some of the concern as well. So based on what we've heard, we've got a couple of alternatives that we want to show to you that I think are helpful to discuss here this evening. I'm going to hope that this one advances.
Yeah, this would show the increase.
Okay, great. So this is the, it was, I can talk through a little bit to that one. So the initial kind of proposal that we're looking at in the alternative is very similar to the prior one that I showed you, with the front load garage is still in place. And with the planting strip about 2 feet taken from the sidewalk and added to the planting strip to give a little better viability to some of those growth areas. So a pretty minor change, but one that we think helps address those concerns related to the planting area. Great. And that's what you see here. You see a slightly smaller sidewalk in front of the houses, and then townhomes, and then an increased planting strip in front of it. Okay, great. And now this is another concept where we've essentially flipped the things and provided a rear load garage. This is accessed through a driveway behind the townhomes. It still allows for a nice green buffer on the left there on that south side with a 20-foot drive aisle that you see. And that's how cars will access the rear load garages. And then in front of the townhomes, you've got, rather than that sidewalk section, you've got a green ribbon section and a planting area to allow for more continuity in the plantings there. And you'll notice that 15th Road and the planting areas on the other side remain unchanged. So obviously there are pros and cons, there are trade-offs with each of these schemes, and we hope to get your feedback associated with those. So with that, there is a view here of all four, the existing, our proposed, and then the two potential alternatives, as well as a snippet from the sector plan there in the top left, which we believe we're achieving with our proposal, the 4.1 submission section, but obviously subject to the things we've heard. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Melody for a much smoother presentation on the architecture for the Land Bay S townhomes.
Thank you, Ked. Hi, my name is Melody Nobliza with Lazard Design, the architects for the for sale townhomes in Land Bay S. I'll walk you through the key components of the site. So this site illustrates the overall layout of townhome blocks, vehicular circulation, pedestrian pathways, and green spaces. The plan supports a variety of for sale housing types while ensuring strong integration with surrounding streets, open spaces, and park connections. On the next slide. So while we're waiting for the next slide, Land Bay S offers a diverse mix of for sale townhomes This range supports different market needs and price points while enhancing architectural diversity throughout the community. Most units offer optional elevators, and zero-step entries are provided on most homes to support accessibility. The next one. Thank you. One of the key features of this plan is the Green Ribbon, a pedestrian-friendly corridor that connects the community to Virginia Highlands Park and the Great Pentagon City area. The design includes ramps and stairs to ensure full ADA accessibility, encouraging walkability throughout the site. You will see on the plan the garage access, which is a mix of rear and front-loaded garages. We also have pedestrian paths ranging from 5 to 8 feet for accessibility and comfort. Each for-sale unit type from A through D offers a unique floor plan and exterior design to enhance both variety and livability. Unit A is a stacked townhome with 2 vertical separated dwellings per stack. Units B through D are traditional multi-story townhomes with varying garage configurations, bedroom counts, and entry orientations. These unit types provide flexibility for both a broad range of home buyers while enhancing density and market appeal. The renderings highlight key views of the stacked townhomes along Kent Street and the traditional front-loaded townhomes across from the Ashley. These also illustrate the material palette and color scheme used across the various for-sale townhome types, a mix of fiber cement, siding, brick, and stone, which creates a cohesive yet visually dynamic architectural character. These durable, timeless materials enhance the overall streetscape while providing subtle variation between buildings for added visual interest. Thank you. And I'll now turn it over to Ali.
Thanks, Melody, and thanks everyone for bearing with us through technical difficulties. I'm Allie Reed, an architect with Torty Gallis and Partners. We are the architects of Building N1. But first, before we get to that, I'm going to be filling in for Janet Meyer of BCT Design Group to say a few words about the C1 building, which is on your screen now. C1 is a 7-story neighborhood-scaled multifamily residential building located on the south of the RiverHouse site, adjacent to the existing Ashley building and townhomes in Land Bay S, which Melody just spoke about. On the next slide, we will see that the C1 building lines the new street grid proposed for the site and includes primary entrances located on Kent Street Extended. The entrance to C1's below building parking garage and the loading dock are both located off the same service drive that accesses the Ashley building's loading area. On the next slide, we can see that the C1 building is situated directly adjacent to the Green Ribbon and sidewalk network, so it allows for good opportunities for pedestrian and other multimodal connections to the rest of the site and the surrounding Pentagon City area. On the next slide, we can see that the architectural character proposed for the C1 building aims to bring variety to the overall RiverHouse neighborhood using brick, metal panel, and fiber cement siding as the material palette. BCT looked to complement the surrounding buildings and the red brick and mid-century modern character of the existing Ashley. On the next slide, we'll see the perspective view showing the proposed C1 building and its context with the Ashley building in the background and the townhomes in the foreground. The massing of the building helps step down the scale of building forms from the 16-story Ashley building to the 7-story C1 building, to the townhomes, and finally to the single-family Aurora Highlands neighborhood. Moving north to the final building, N1 is a mixed-use multifamily with retail at the Joy Street level. On the next slide, we'll see the primary building entrances are located along Joy Street and along the N1 open space to the north. All loading and parking entries are located near the existing loading for the Potomac building, and they use the same service drive. Retail has been designed to accommodate a new VHC Health location. On the next slide, we can see that the building is set back from Joy Street to allow for wide sidewalks. At the same time, it forms a consistent street edge. And now we're looking at the N1 open space, which establishes a nice green east-west connection through the site. The graphics that you're looking at right now, if we go back one, thanks. The graphics on the screen right now represent the open space to be built out with N1. The larger full-size open space would be completed with the full build-out of building N2. For building N1, we are proposing a massing and brick color that's slightly different from the existing buildings to create a diversity of building character in the neighborhood. And then finally, on the rendering slide, we can see that the building has step backs at the upper stories, but the ground level holds the street edge and follows the curve of Joy Street with the intent to contribute to a more continuous network of pedestrian-friendly streets. At the same time, the facade has modulations approximately every 55 feet to create various facades and variation. And that concludes the applicant's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to everyone, and apologies to the applicant for technical interruptions. We'll go to staff.
Sounds good. I just wanted to echo what Daniel said. Apologies again, especially to folks online who are wondering what's happening. Hopefully we will get through this one without any issues. My name is Adam Watson. I'm with Arlington County Planning Division. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process and next steps, touch on overall land use and density, overall building heights across the PDSP, and then close out by talking about building form, architecture, and sustainability as it relates to the, again, 3 final site plans that we have coming before us now. So these are the buildings that would be, initial phase of construction. So that's the townhouses, N1 and C1 building. So we are here on May 18th. This is not October 24th of last year. Apologies about that. So our next SPRC meeting would be on June 26th in this room, and then on July 28th, also in this room. At some point in time between now and the end of that, we do expect to have a concurrent but separate public space planning process to look at the final, the initial and the final design of that proposed N1, N2 public space. So please, dates are still being worked out, but please stay tuned for that, and we will push out more information on that as soon as we have it. I wanted to just go over some updates to documents and processes because there's just a lot of information on the web page, and there's a lot of information available. So the applicant has, since our last SPRC, resubmitted fully revised 4.1 plans, and those are all listed here. So we have a rezoning, a phase development site plan, and then we have these 4 final site plans, which include the N1 building, the townhouses, C1 building, and then we have a new record for the final site plan for the buildings that are going to remain. So the Potomac and the James and the Ashley. Another thing that you're going to find online are revised urban design guidelines. And what this document does is it shows how the future phases would develop in accordance with the sector plan recommendations. And so we ask that you all go to the project page and look at that document. And we would like to get your feedback on that at the last SPRC if folks have things to say. It should really be a reflection of what is being proposed and discussed through this process anyways, but we just want to make sure everybody's aware about that. We do have a new preliminary phasing plan that's available online. It shows what's the anticipated sequence of the future phases and associated improvements with each phase. I just have to note that this is a draft, it's still preliminary, and the specific improvements that come with each phase may change before we go to the planning commissions and the county board. Also just have to caveat that the county cannot control the specific sequence in which buildings are delivered. So that may change over time. However, I'm presenting tonight those buildings in the sequence in which they were shown in the phasing plan, just to help everybody follow along. We also have a revised multimodal transportation assessment available online, revised sustainability documents, and then again, dates coming soon on the public space master planning process. So as the applicant mentioned, I'm going to talk about final site plans or the initial phases. I'm using those terms interchangeably. Again, that's the townhouses, the C1 building, the N1 building. The full PDSP, of course, includes the buildings or the footprints of the buildings shown in blue on the bottom image here, which would be subject to a new site plan or site plan amendment at some point in time in the future. When those buildings, if those buildings come in, if we get a development application for them, we will go back through the SPRC process to talk about those buildings at such time as we have an application to do that. So just being clear that there would be new processes, new SPRC processes for new buildings as they came in. Applicants spoke to this as well, but this density table just gives you a snapshot of the overall density that's proposed here. The columns and rows shaded gray are the existing units down there today. Everything in the light green tone is what is being proposed to be added through an application that we have now. And then we also have the future phase density shown, not shaded in the bottom of the table. So you'll note that a majority of the density of the overall density here, which is 4,461 dwelling units, 2,000 roughly of those units would actually be coming in future phases. What we're looking at today through the rest of the SPRC process is really more limited to the 738 that are at the townhouses, the N1 building, and the C1 building. All right, so I'm going to jump in, talk about the sector plan. We're here tonight to talk about land use and density. The proposed uses are consistent with the sector plan and the Pentagon City Coordinated Redevelopment District. For both residential uses, and then the Pentagon City Coordinated Redevelopment District allows a number of other uses that are permitted, which are listed here at the top of the screen. So when we entitle that density, those are the uses that would be allowed. Overall, the proposed density is consistent with the sector plan. So that's what the graph at the bottom shows. It shows you what the base density would be per the sector plan, and the center in blue is what is being proposed. Again, overall with the PDSP and including existing units, where you have the maximum at the far right-hand side of the screen, which is 150 dwelling units per acre. So the applicant is proposing about 123 dwelling units per acre. Sector plan building heights. So we talked about this at the last SPRC as well, and all the proposed building heights do comply with the sector plan limits. So this table makes a comparison between the maximum height of the buildings that are proposed versus what the sector plan allows. The bolded buildings are the ones that are the final site plans we have coming in now. So N1 is 7 stories. They could go up to 250 feet in height for part of that. So they're well under the building height allowed there. C1 maximum permitted height of about 16 stories. Again, they're at 7 stories. And then the townhouses at 4 stories. So in addition to being within the limits set by the sector plan, it also furthers the sector plan objective of having a variation of building heights among new buildings constructed in the neighborhood. Okay, so I'm going to jump into now talking about some building form, architecture, and sustainability things. These are things that just staff has noted and would be interested in your feedback this evening if you have thoughts on these specific things or anything else that falls under these categories. So again, I'm going to start talking about the townhouses first, as this is the first that we would anticipate to have come in for construction. So as the applicant stated, this is 50 stacked flat units or type A units that are mostly along Kent Street, and also 77 townhouses. In terms of sustainability, they are not participating in the green building incentive policy program for bonus density, but they are still planning to achieve LEED Gold certification. In terms of discussion areas, we do want to talk a little bit about some of these tree canopy zones where the sector plan is looking for 40 feet from the southern lot line. As proposed right now, it's about 38 feet. And then from the western lot line, it would be 60 feet, and we're at 32 feet proposed, obviously recognizing that there's, trade-offs between a number of different sector plan goals, which include, having housing versus, areas for new tree canopy growth, green ribbon orientation, et cetera. I'm going to touch a little bit about the front-loaded garages that Kedrick mentioned in his presentation, and then briefly about some facade materials. So the applicant did a great job, I think, covering the overall architecture of and design of these townhouses. There's quite a few of them, and this is just meant to be a representative example. So we're showing on the top front elevation and then the rear elevation of a certain segment of townhouses that's closest. See my cursor? No, but I'm talking about the segment that is actually closest to the Ashley building, closest to existing Joyce Street. So overall, we don't have a lot of comments to make on this from staff's perspective. We would like to see perhaps increased use of brick or other more durable facade materials, especially on the rear side of these and on the side facades as is possible to, if it's possible to do, to incorporate more of that. In terms of the front-loaded garages, so the image here on the left-hand side of the screen, everything that's encompassed in the red line has a front-loaded garage, two-car garage, and in particular, this is a concern for staff with the segment that's basically running Page north-south, which is along the southern lot line. Reason being is because these driveways, as you can see in our enlarged markup here, prohibit having a public streetscape that is designed to county standards. We also have some concerns about the long-term viability and the maintenance of street trees along this segment. So as Kedrick mentioned, we are working with them to evaluate the potential for having the units that are along, we'll call it 15th Road, have them rear loaded, and the trade-offs with having rear loaded garages and then reorienting the sidewalk or the green ribbon to the front side or the street side of the townhouses. And we would welcome your feedback on that this evening. To just further that point a little bit, what we're really trying to achieve here or advance is having a clear, unobstructed sidewalk where we can have standard landscaping strips, standard tree spacing to maintain the health of those over the long run. What we're trying to avoid, and this is the image here on the left is the Bellwood Courthouse. This is actually just down the street, just to the south of us. The image on the right-hand side, not to pick on anybody at all, is the Beach Street townhouses. And to be fair, this is the back side of them. However, we just wanted to illustrate what can happen when you have garage doors facing the street. You have vehicles parked in the driveway, of course. You have trash cans, other obstructions in the sidewalk. So we're really trying to avoid creating that environment down what's supposed to be a public street. I'm going to move on now to talk about the N1 building. So this would be the second to deliver, and the VHC Health, as the applicant spoke to. So again, 509 units, a little over, well, just shy of 15,000 square feet for Virginia Hospital Center Health urgent care use as a retail space in that building. and again, the initial portion of that N1, N2 public space. So this building will participate in the green building incentive policy. So that means LEED Gold certification. They are subject to the automatic update of the 2020 standards, which includes increased standards for energy optimization for this building, bird-friendly materials, and a whole number of other prerequisites that are listed in the policy. And this, of course, meets the sector plan recommendations, which recommends a minimum of LEED Gold. In terms of a lingering topic that we just have to flag as a deviation, again, the sector plan recommends that the overall facade length of a building, when it's 8 stories or less, not exceed 250 feet. This is just showing you that we'll just call it the page north facade and the page right facade are exceeding that by quite a bit. However, the applicant did make significant changes to the design of the future N2 building, which allowed for us to get close to 1 acre of public space between those two buildings and align the fixed build-to zones with West Post across the street. Nevertheless, we do just note this if folks have thoughts or comments to share on that. Lastly, the C1 building. So this would be, again, the last of the 3 initial site plans we have coming in. So this is a proposal for a multifamily building, 102 dwelling units. This building will not be participating in the green building incentive policy plan, but we are anticipating having LEED Gold certification. Our comments on this building are mostly related to the facade. So I've quoted a lot of text here from the sector plan, but the top 2 bullets, what they're really getting at is we would like to see a more distinct roof to this building. And the sector plan notes that above the 6th floor, some of the facade area should be displaced at least 6 inches from the prevailing adjacent facade plane to provide relief. So there's other things that are listed here, balconies, projecting bays, et cetera, to provide a more distinct roof line to this building. Another comment that we have down at the bottom, and this stood true for the townhouses as well, is just to try to limit or eliminate, if possible, the use of fiber cement along public frontages, and just overall any efforts to improve facade material quality. All right, so yeah, as our chair mentioned, the discussion topics for this evening are land use density, our site layout and phasing, particularly if folks have comments or questions about how the site layout will, move from initial phases through completion and ultimate build out. And then we're talking about building form and height, architecture, and sustainability, again, just as it relates to the 3 applications that we have in front of us today. For the next meeting, we anticipate talking about landscaping and biophilia, green ribbon segments, and what will probably be part 1 of transportation, as we'll likely need to cover some of those topics at the final meeting, or at least revisit some of the ones from the second meeting. So we'll have more information to follow on that. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. So at this point, we're going to move to questions and then comment. Those of you who have participated with the project that I've chaired before will recall that the way I like to do things is that we go around the room and ask clarifying questions. An example of a clarifying question is to the applicant. Looking at N1, it looks to me, you've got the 7-story building. It looks to me like that's either a 5/2 or a 6/1. Is that correct? And so stick above a 1 or 2-story concrete podium?
That's correct.
Thanks. Those of you who have been involved in a project that I've chaired before also know that if people take too long or try to smuggle comments into the form of questions, I will likely ask you if you are coming to a question. That is not out of disrespect for whoever I end up picking on. It is out of respect for the group. And by that, I mean that we have 12 people so far who have signed up to give public comment. Hoping to do 2 minutes each. That would be 24 minutes, bringing us to 8:36, which gives us about 41 minutes of floor time for the table, which is a little under 2.5 minutes each per person. So I am going to start with Mr. Reb. We will go clockwise. And at this point, then, just to reiterate, inviting people to ask any clarifying questions they have of either applicant or staff. And then we will go back around again for any comments that people might want to give. There is no reason to, the three topics, we're going to go around once, and you can hit up to all three of those topics in your questions. You don't have to, that guides our discussion. It shouldn't structure it. Actually, Mr. Reb, I'm going to go with Mr. Berkey just because he's closer to my left, and that way I can keep my neat little clockwise thing happening.
I think that's working. I will actually pass.
So, Mr. Reb.
Sure. Several questions. First is, I'd like to understand what's going on in the PDSP and the discussion we were having previously versus what we're having now. Because it seems like we're not having a discussion now, that we're basically pushing that off and saying, only look at what's got site plans today, and in the future we'll consider anything else. So I'd like to understand, what is the legal standing of the PDSP now versus what it was 3 months ago? Do you want me to go through all my questions or answer sequentially?
I think the best way to do it is just to list the questions that you have, and then we will get to them serially.
Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is, there was a traffic report submission in this that I tried for several hours to read. A lot of it is based on assumptions provided by the county. So I would like to have a discussion of the traffic study that was presented in the materials with a clear designation of what are the assumptions, where did they come from, what's the support for them, et cetera. So that. Related to the PDSP, the previous one talked about impervious ground on the site, that was increasing 30% over what it is today, which the original proposition of this was basically to cover unproductive parking lots with buildings, but we're going much further in covering the site. So I wanted to understand, in the new plan, how has that changed? For the N1, N2 center area, I wanted to understand what is prohibiting us from building out the full area between those buildings, rather than phasing it to some indefinite time in the future. That's good for this round.
Okay. Mr. Watson, I think we'll go to you for 1 and 4, and then I'll leave it up to you and the applicant to decide 2 and 3.
Sure. And I apologize, you might have to remind me number 4, but when we come to it, but I'll answer number 1 to begin with. So what's changed with the PDSP? So that the PDSP is entitling the general site layout, the maximum density, the maximum building heights, and the final site plans are doing all of that, but also showing us, right, what the design of the buildings are, fully engineered, well, engineered to a 4.1 standard. So in terms of the PDSP, we are here tonight to hear from you about building heights for all buildings, site layout for all buildings. But for example, N2, we do not have an architectural plan set for that building. What I'm saying is that at such time as we would have a 4.1 application for a building like that, we'd go back through SPRC and have a discussion about the specifics of the form of the building, a revisitation of the height of the building. We talk about the elevations, the facade materials, the envelope, access to the site, et cetera. And then, I'm sorry.
4 was what's prohibiting us from building out the full area of the space between N1 and N2. And I think I sent both to you because I think that those are fairly related questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna Kedrick and company, I'm gonna turn to you guys on that one. But there is a parking garage today, or structured parking in there today that is part of the equation, but I'll let you answer.
That's the answer. Okay, parking.
Okay, thank you. We will go to Ms. D, I think. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Reb. 2 and 3, the traffic report and change in impervious percentage between the previous plan and this one. Mr. Whitmore, do you want to handle those?
Well, with
Apologies,
respect
Mr.
to,
Reb.
I think there he is.
Mr. Gibson.
For the traffic report, it depends on how technical of a question you want to get to. If you provide your questions, in writing, we'll provide a response on the details. If you feel like it's more helpful to have much more of a sort of back and forth discussion, staff would be happy to entertain that. Granted, I would just ask that we try to figure out if that needs to be a slightly larger group, meaning if there's 2 or 3 different people that have questions, we'll try to coordinate the effort. And I hope that's the best approach to take.
Well, and I think if I can jump in, that we will have a transportation will be an agenda item at a future meeting, both for the overall PDSP and for the specific site plan for the specific buildings that are proposed for 4.1 entitlement, so N1,
Right.
et cetera.
Yeah, so we can do some of those things, but if you have questions that are much more detailed and may otherwise take that meeting offline, we'd be happy to support a discussion outside of the SPRC process for details.
And as far as perviousness?
That's in the filing. I don't have it here at my fingertips, but Mr. Reb will bring it for you next time and present it.
Thank you. And now, Ms. D, I think we'll go to you.
I'm sorry if I'm kind of being really slow about this, but I just need to clarify, still going back to the PDSP, why, if we're able to have a full discussion about the height of the buildings that are not being built, what is it that we are looking at approving right now? Is it just the footprint? Is it the density? Because I'm not clear why we have to approve anything relating to the other sites if we're going to go through the full process at a later date.
Well, okay, so what the board would be approving is, and I'm going to try to elaborate on this to the best of my ability because it's a lot of information, but it's everything that's in the PDSP filing, that record that I mentioned, right? So it's the general site layout, it's the general layout of the street network, it's the placement of the buildings in the form of a footprint, it's a overall maximum height and an overall maximum density. And what that does is helps establish what the goals are for the future site plans when they come in, whether it's community benefits or making sure everybody has an understanding of the overall total density potential that might happen there in the future. What we're doing with the final site plan is you actually have an architectural plan set. So it's everything I just mentioned plus the full civil engineering and the architectural package to go with it.
So is there actually an opportunity in those conversations, fine, the footprint, whatever, but I don't know how to ask this politically, but basically if right now we approve what's being presented, when we have this conversation at a later date, is the county going to say, oh, well, we didn't cover the density we wanted to cover with the earlier lower buildings, so now you have to go to 22 stories and there's no conversation to be had. Does that make sense, that question?
It does, but yeah, we are working just to establish a baseline for the overall trajectory of what the maximum density is going to be for this site. So if there are objections, for instance, to the overall building height of N2 or N3 or the amount of density overall as proposed with the PDSP, we absolutely want to hear that here and now.
Today?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that'll be in the
Yeah.
opinion part.
It is confusing, and I'm sorry, but the kind of thing that would be, for example, something that we wouldn't be talking about tonight, we don't know what the facade of N3 or N2 or a future building is going to look like, and that's the reason why there'd be another process to go
Right.
through that later.
I don't care about the facade, I care
Understood.
about the height.
Understood.
That's why I want to understand what we can address with that today, because if
Yes.
we're not, okay.
Yes, and please do.
So that goes to my opinion part, right?
Sure.
Thank you for helping to participate in my cute, sometimes over cute little structure. Sorry.
Okay, I have a long list of questions on behalf of the Park and Rec Commission, but it sounds like might not be the right moment at this time to ask those questions because they're not really in the area of clarification.
If they're related to, if there are questions about land use and density, site layout and phasing, building form, architecture and sustainability, then tonight would be appropriate for them. We will come to the other topics that we normally come to. Transportation as an example, open space, these kinds of topics will be addressed at a future meeting.
Okay, and I'll just give you a sense of what those questions would be. And then if they are not really encompasses what we want to cover tonight, then I'll hold them until one of the future meetings then. They would touch upon the pocket parks that were going to be established, what acreage those would cover, whether there be any equipment installed, playground equipment, things of that nature. I'd like to talk a little bit about tree canopy goals that would be met. I'd also like to talk about the efforts to capture stormwater runoff, either through rain gardens, other things such as permeable pathways, driveways, what have you, things of that sort. And then finally, I'd like to ask some questions at some point, appropriate point, about the number of additional residents we can anticipate that would be added if each of these three areas, Land Bay S, C1, N1, are fully occupied, because I'd like to know what the impact of those additional residents is going to be on the adjacent Virginia Highlands Park.
Mr. Watson, I think we can start with the fourth one, right? Do we have under full build out of we've seen the table of the number of units. Yeah, go ahead.
I just need to refresh on what the question was. I'm sorry.
The final question about what the number of additional residents would be under a full build out of what has, as I understand the question, a full build out of what the applicant is proposing for the PDSP, not necessarily a full build out under the sector plan.
Right, a full build out under the PDSP is 4,400 units, approximately.
Okay, and do you have
that includes existing units.
Okay, do you have an estimate of how many individuals that will add? Family members, what have you?
It depends on the unit mix. You know, when we get further along, we can work to get you an estimate, but I can work with the applicant to get you an answer that I don't have one right now.
Okay, yeah, we'd be particularly interested in knowing how many children or any older people.
If you're worried about schools, we coordinate with APS before this goes to commissions to understand, get a student generation estimate for K through 12.
Yeah, it was a twofold, both that and then also impact on the use of playground equipment at the adjacent park. And my hope is that there will be some playground equipment added on the RiverHouse property.
Yeah, I mean, I just to understand that the full PDSP build out, you know, we would be looking to expand Virginia Highlands Park by an acre or two, I believe is sorry, I apologize. I'm blanking on the total, even though I thought I burned it into my memory. But yeah, Virginia Highlands Park would be expanded. The exact programming of that space would be determined later. There's money allocated in the CIP for improving that area. It's 2031, I want to say at this point, but we can get back to you on that. These are good topics for our questions for our next meeting, where we're talking specifically about landscaping, biophilia, and public space.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
That would include the stormwater runoff questions and the
Yeah.
Canopy questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, definitely canopy. Yeah.
And potentially we can get some forecasting tables for, based on different assumptions about unit types, what the net additional number of, well, we can follow up on that.
Yeah, and then
A nodding head from Mr. Whitmore.
Yeah.
So that's certainly, I think, a question that we can answer at an upcoming meeting, maybe with some degree of generality, I hope.
Right. And I would say that Mr. Matuzik is here with us this evening, not to call him out, but I do believe in the sector plan, there is, we have done modeling about the potential under the maximum development scenario for future residents in this area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's Shinners. Shinners, thank you.
Good evening. So I'm filling in for Cindy, so I have a couple questions from her. Just do it one at a time because I think the other part is confusing. So for the C2E2 Commission, big initiative is 100% electrification all across the board. So we think it should be in every building going forward across the entire county. There's a question.
Okay, thank you.
So why are you not pursuing 100% electrification across all of the buildings that includes the gas backups?
Great. So we are happy to be providing for electric ranges in both the C1 and the N1 building. That's something we're very proud of here. In terms of the full electrification, that's not something, particularly with some of these unit types, that's feasible economically at this point, particularly some of the backup systems. But we are proud of the commitments we're making to LEED Gold, as well as opportunities for EV Ready and a number of other items, even for those buildings that aren't participating in the GBIP program.
So that brings up another question. So for what are you exactly doing to make the buildings EV ready?
So that will involve having essentially the wiring and the opportunity to, in the future, install EV chargers where necessary, particularly with respect to the single families, right? That's a little bit more tricky since those are fee simple ownership units, but we have designed them so that they will be easily converted to add EV chargers in the future if future owners so desires.
Continuing to pull on the EV thread, are you able to give us the percentages that you're targeting for total parking spaces that are EV charging and EV ready?
Let me check. Why don't we keep going while I look at that? And just some of these, if I'm not sure how long the list is, it may be simpler to provide an email, which we've done in the past, which we're happy to just answer all those in a email response. I'm curious why you're not going after the GBIP on all of the buildings and only pursuing one. Well, there are a variety of factors that go into it, right? It's part of the overall community benefit structure. One of the really nice things about the Pentagon City Sector Plan, unlike other sector plans, is that it specifically delineates the types of benefits to be provided in terms of affordable housing, in terms of open space, and transportation, neighborhood infrastructure created. And so with all of those other community benefits in mind, it did meet all the necessities that we had in terms of density. That being said, the sector plan still requires a pretty strong commitment with LEED Gold, and we've been able to honor that, and we're very happy about that.
Okay. I won't go through all of them. We'll just follow up the email. But the last one I'll ask is, so you're pursuing LEED Gold 4.0. Why aren't you choosing 4.1, which is the updated standard?
That was the standard in place at the time when we filed these. You'll recall when we started here, this was 2022, 2023, and so we designed buildings to the standard in place at that time. This process has taken a while, and that's part of it, but we are still using those that were in place at the time of acceptance of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I will take the opportunity to remind my colleagues that we only have, on average, about 2.5 minutes of floor time each. So please try to prioritize the questions that are raised. So,
I don't have any questions.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go quickly. The phasing of the N1 open space park, I didn't catch when that's going to be done. And if it is the absolute last part, is there any parts of it that can be done earlier in the process?
Are you talking about the planning process or the actual construction of the park?
The actual construction.
So I'll let you guys answer that.
I think, Commissioner Peterson, is your question, why can't it be built earlier? I mean, we are intending that it will be part of the requirements for certificates of occupancy for that particular building. Is your question, why can't it be built sooner than the N1 building?
Just a lot of times when we have a community benefit like a park, it's kind of comes at the end of the process. And if there are delays in any part of the process, then we have like a partially built building or just an empty site. And everyone's like, wait, wouldn't it be nice if we could have that park earlier, or like a temporary park?
Part of the difficulty with that particular site is the existing buildings and units, right? We're dealing with an operational site. And until we make the commitment to say, okay, we're going to take these spaces offline, we're going to redevelop this area, we can't take kind of a chunk off of it. That being said, I think the Virginia Highlands Park we're very lucky to have that resource nearby. And we are going to be granting some additional opportunities for open space through there and helping with that expansion. So I hope that covers it.
Thank you. And I also had questions about architecture more generally. I noticed first about the townhouses. We have a very kind of specific style that we do townhouses in Arlington. And I was wondering, is that like, paying homage to some sort of architectural style? Have we looked at like San Francisco has the painted ladies? In New England, we have the brownstones. Are these other options that you all consider, or is this the way we do townhouses in the Mid-Atlantic?
I'm going to let Melody respond to that.
So right now, our architecture is kind of cohesive with the rest of the architecture for the multifamily buildings. So we're kind of blending in with them. We can look at other architectural styles, but that's the direction we have right now. More into not too modern, but not too modern and not too traditional. So it's actually in the middle of it. It's kind of transitional.
Okay, thank you. And then the architecture.
Sorry, if I can add just one thing too. A lot of what's driving this townhouse design is the market, right? And as I said, these are for sale units, and we're really happy about the ability to provide those. Those have their own desires, right, in the market, and so a lot of it is responding to those market needs as well.
Thank you. And then along the green ribbon, have you thought about incorporating more biophilic architectural designs like vertical gardens, trees or shrubbery on balconies, organic materials like wood, or paneling along those sides of the buildings, or even green roofs that are somehow visible from different heights or elevations, or along the green ribbon?
It's a great question. Part of what we've tried to do is ensure that the green ribbon transition from the green ribbon to the housing is as seamless as possible. I'm not going to try to pull up that section again because of how many problems we had to begin with, but you'll see that there are kind of areas of transition between the townhomes and the green ribbon itself, so that we can kind of move and have some biophilic elements there, some plantings, some private gardens, that sort of thing, so that there's not a stark contrast in the two elements.
I think that was a huge factor in the N1 design, was the amount of balconies that we have fronting that. And that was a key early. I mean, this is going back 3+ years, right? The stoop culture and the idea of being able to see people circulating on that. So that's something we've really focused on, is how do we use the green ribbon and the indoor outdoor spaces to facilitate interaction and community building.
How many, excuse me, it just went away. How affordable units will be available in each multifamily apartment building?
Sure.
So that's in one, and what's the other one?
N1 and C1?
Yes.
Yes. So we're still working with staff on what that number looks like. There is luckily a benchmark in the Pentagon City Sector Plan that 10% of net new density will be affordable. So we're working with the staff on what that mix looks like.
And what about with the townhomes? Are you getting together with the county staff to see if there's a possibility to make home ownership available for all individuals in Arlington with a variety of income stream, basically making it so that individuals who would like to purchase a home but can't afford $1 million townhome, something in that realm, so we can like make sure we bridge the gap
We haven't gotten there completely yet, but I'll tell you, it's always a difficult question, right? In terms of, do we want to provide a greater number of units, right? Which is obviously in the multifamily that you can do versus a smaller number with a larger price point. It's something like that. The for sale units do have challenges, right? When trying to put that into an affordable framework. So that's not something we're currently proposing. We think that they're going to be end up in the multi buildings going forward.
I'll pass, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
First, for the chair, is the discussion of the green ribbon for the next meeting, or is that for in deciding whether to have it on the street side or behind the sticks? Is that for now or for next one?
I think we're okay. Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm seeing head nodding. I think the head nodding is for next one. Is that what
my suggestion is that the placement of it, the location is important for today, but the nature of it would be maybe in those future ones. But I think that's an important part of building placement. But
Mr.
obviously,
Watson.
Yeah, I think we'd like to at least hear initial thoughts on it today. And if we talk about it further next time, then that's
so it's
greatest follow up.
So it's okay for both.
I think so.
Yeah, as long as they're questions.
Yeah. I just want to get that literally get that clarified. The question I also have, though, is more on sustainability. For purchased townhouses, there's garages there. Because presumably you'll be marketing those during construction, that people can start putting money down that they want to own a unit. Could they customize it as one of the options? Could they make it have the EV chargers in it when you're building it, or is it just going to be ready and it's up to them once they take possession?
So the applicant is not ultimately going to be developing this. The JBG Smith is not a townhome developer. So that will be something that'll be a decision of whoever the ultimate builder is. That being said, I would assume that there will be some level of change that one can ask for, and certainly physically, right? That can be done. Whether the developer chooses to offer it, maybe.
Because usually when something's being built, there's also some options of like countertop colors and
exactly adding
fixtures, that sort of thing.
Features, that's right. So I would assume that would be part of the package.
I'm done with questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Latone.
A couple of questions. First question is about the use of the buildings. There was a lengthy process with the community, and there was a senior building and there was a condominium building, and those both seem to have evaporated in this iteration. So I'm wondering what happened to those. Another question is, did you look at undergrounding some of the parking for the townhouse sticks in order to eliminate some of those 58 driveway cuts? And then finally, the last question is for visitor parking. It looks like the streets don't have any on-site parking. So is there provision for visitor parking for the townhouses?
Sure. So I can take each of those in order. So with respect to the condo and the senior building, so the condo building, you may remember its location was up at the top of the spur there. That was an item where staff wanted to see kind of a straight shot and a view all the way up that hill. And the condo was in the way, frankly. And so that had to be removed as a result. So that was cut from the program. In terms of the senior living, that was unfortunately a bit of a casualty of the market. When we first started this process a few years back, senior living was hot. We had a lot of interest, a lot of folks looking at it. That market has unfortunately cooled. And so because we weren't able to get it through, we've kind of lost the opportunity, at least for now, to do that. So unfortunate, but just a reality.
I'd say C2 still has the footprint that we worked with BCT on. So it could come back. It's just not in the 4.1. So it still has the ability in the PDSP. We're just not, it's not in these initial plans.
So with respect to your second question on undergrounding the parking, we did take a look at that, and there's a few reasons why that doesn't work for this. I mean, first and foremost is the fact that these are for sale units. And in order to have a common underground garage, we couldn't do a fee simple ownership structure. It would need to be a condo ownership structure. And then you'd be in a circumstance where you'd have 137 odd individual homeowners being responsible for the maintenance of basically a commercial grade parking garage, which you can imagine is not a great situation. On top of that, it would add significant cost in the order of $500,000 or so per unit, making these really tough to achieve. And I apologize, I forgot the third question. Right. So the visitor parking will be provided for townhomes. There's a different standard than for multis, right? But there will be on-street parking in other areas of the site. There will be public access to some of these garages as we go through. And we'll provide some more detail in the streetscape at the transportation meeting too, to see where those might be.
No questions. I'm good.
This is on the loading of the townhomes and the alternate driveway alignment. It's currently, you're showing that if you move the driveway, well, first question is, this is the south townhomes and where the driveways have all the cuts going in. Is that where traffic, or is that where trash pickup is going to be? Are we going to see carts basically? Are people going to pull out their recycling and the rest of that on that sidewalk?
I think that's where you'd need to load it from, right?
15th
That's
road,
the only
okay.
access for a truck.
Okay.
That's right.
And then you could obviate that if you move the road to the backside and backload, that's where the pickup would occur. Is that correct?
That's right. There wouldn't be. Well, it could also come on. It could come on either side. That way, you've got two. You've got a public street or potentially a private street, and then you've got the alley. So you have two.
Okay, so but I'm thinking it would be better to have it back where the garages are. People take their stuff out there.
Right.
But the other question is, road. It's a 2-lane road. Is it possible to make it a 1-lane road and have it one-way traffic, and you wouldn't need as much of a right-of-way?
Are you talking about the front, and we're trying to?
I'm talking about the back.
The back.
Instead of using a 20-foot roadway, could you get like a 12 or 13-foot and run it one way in, and then you come out on 15th Road?
It would have to be reviewed with the fire marshal. Minimum one-way road is 15 feet. Most you would get is 5 to 6 feet.
It still stays 5s, and it gives you more room to, yeah. I would say, I think it's worth looking at. And and that might give you more room on the 15th Road side to have more green if that's where the green ribbon shifts.
That's helpful. Thank you.
That's it.
I think we will go to, oh, yeah. Well, you and I go last for questions. So I'm going to go to the people online. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Do you want to, I think you can come up. I think that okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So I represent the RiverHouse. We have 89 units, about double that amount in residence. And my building is not in favor of this project in its form today.
Really want to stress that, right, we'll come around for comments. I want to stress that this is an opportunity for asking questions.
Well, we have 3 questions.
Thank you.
But can I give you some background if that's okay?
I would really like to try to stick as closely as we can to just clarifying questions, and we will come around for comments.
Okay, then I'll wait. Thank you.
Thank
you. Do have somebody online.
Yeah, we have Ms. Van Hines, we have Commissioner Haynes.
Hi, thank you very much. I'll try to be fast. I have a couple questions about the townhouses and a couple questions about N1. I want to make sure I understand what the JBG Smith and staff are working on for flipping where the garages are, and if you can successfully do that for the ones that need that, what are the implications to, especially on the west side, where already you're right up against the tree canopy and the edge of the development? Is it going to be a challenge to provide access to the back of them there? So that's one thing. And the other for N1, if I understand that you are going to be doing just part of the open space in between, and what are the dimensions for that? I don't need to know that now, but if we can have that next time, and what the general design is for that. The slides didn't make it clear exactly how big it was going to be and what was going to be in there. And is that part of the park planning process, or is that separate from that? And if indeed the building is a bit too long still, how is that going to impact the green ribbon on the west side? And those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Van High. It's going to go to Mr. Watson.
Hi, Pam. I think so the first question, what we're looking at doing would still have, let's just say approximately a 20-foot tree buffer on the south lot line with respect to, I'm talking about the townhomes orientation. And then you would have an alley to allow rear-loaded garages for maneuvering and for trash and for parking. And then you would have a somewhat narrower townhouse. And then you would have a full streetscape, clear sidewalk, stoop zone and standardized tree plantings along the edge of Kent Street. So we're trying to evaluate that trade-off versus what is currently in the 4.1 application right now, which is a green ribbon that's within basically a 38-foot buffer zone along the southern lot line, but the units are front-loaded. So there's not really a sidewalk on the south side of 15th Road. There's essentially a series of about 50 driveways. So we're trying to evaluate the trade-offs between those two things, knowing that there's only so much space to work with between the back of curb on the Ashley side to the north and the southern lot line. And so trying to sense out, do we get a more standardized public streetscape along 15th Road at the detriment of perhaps losing a little bit of the buffer area on the south side versus what is currently proposed. The answer about the N1, N2 public space, we can get you I think we probably can get you the dimensions by email later tonight. But yes, the design of that and the programming of that would be discussed at the public space master planning process. Dates still to come. Please stay tuned. And then I think your question was the last one was about the overall facade lengths of the N1 building and the impact of that on the green ribbon and maybe the forested zone along the western lot line. And the answer to that is that it does, I believe, still encroach a little bit into the 60 feet that are recommended from the western lot line. And I think that answers all the questions.
Thank you very much.
Great. Is my turn? Carolyn
Please.
Haynes, Forestry and Natural Resource Commission. Most of my questions have been answered. Just a couple things on the front loading versus back loading. And is there any impact on like the continuous soil pits and opportunities for plantable spaces given the various options there? And can we see those? I don't want to see them now, but if we could get access to those slides so that we can take a closer look at that, at the proposed options, that would be really helpful. The other one I have is why no bird-friendly glass on the townhouses in C1? Is it because we're not going to have any trees and they think there'll be no birds? Or it seems if we're trying to get some tree canopy in there, we're going to need bird-friendly glass.
Commissioner Haynes, I can answer a couple of those questions. So with respect to your last question first, the C1 building and the Land Bay S buildings, they are lacking in the type of glazing that will typically cause the issues for birds, and that will then be remedied by the bird glass. Based on the proposed architecture, both buildings, or I should say, both the C1 building and the maximum for the Land Bay S buildings are less than the threat rating of 15. That's the maximum permitted under the GBIP. So theoretically, you could have a building with bird glass qualifying for the GBIP that's actually more dangerous for birds than these buildings. We also avoid those areas identified specifically as concerned in the sector plan where we do not have glass on the building corners and the throughways. With respect to your question on the plantings along the townhome street, we are providing, even in the condition, I'm glad you asked this, even in the condition where there are the driveways in the front, we are going to provide continuous soil panels and silva cells to help ensure that there are adequate growth opportunities in those areas.
Thank you.
Commissioner Striner, and then we'll go around.
Okay, so first is on the facade and the 250-foot sort of limit that the PDSP recommends. What would be the downsides of going over that limit as proposed here? It's for staff.
I'm sorry, what was the downside?
Yeah, what would be the downside of us going over that 250-foot limit that's outlined in the site plan?
Yeah, let me share my screen real fast so everybody can see.
And then while you're pulling that up, and my other question is there's 50 shades of gray on these buildings. And I think my question is why, coming off of what Commissioner Peterson had said, is that, is there more color that we can work into these buildings, these units, to add more of character, more flair to these sites?
If I may respond to one element of this related to the overall facade lengths, I mean, there is a section in the sector plan that says limit overall facade length to approximately 250 feet for buildings under 8 stories. However, there's a sentence following that says follow design guidelines to break up massing, including introducing prominent vertical composition lines, providing mid-block connections, shifting building materials or design, and or providing major building entrances. So we've relied heavily on that second sentence to mitigate any of the impacts of that lengthy facade.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just would say that, I mean, I agree with what Kedrick said there. The concern about the overall length of particularly this northern facade, which is on the right-hand side, was that the overall length of the building extended into what is supposed to be basically a 60-foot tree canopy zone from this. Unfortunately, my cursor is not showing up, but the lot line from there to the face of the building, you wanted at least 60 feet, and so that building is encroaching into a little bit there. So what's the downside you're asking is a little bit of the green ribbon has been shifted further to the west or to the page north, and then there's less. Because the green ribbon is running through, there's just less opportunity for existing and future tree canopy.
Okay. Yeah, noted. All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go around. I regret, I apologize to those present. We will probably end up going a little long. I really want to try to get to public comment within the next 15 minutes. So I invite people to be as expeditious as possible in their closing comments. We will start with Commissioner Berkey.
I'll just defer my time or pass.
So I'll focus on 2 areas. One, at the N1 is a massive building. And I've listened to some of these meetings previously. It would seem like along a street front, the architecture of one side should relate to the architecture on the other side. Pentagon Row is 5 stories. This is 7 stories. As was just mentioned, the color tones are totally different. So if we're talking about a SPRC for that building, architecturally, it just doesn't seem to fit with the neighborhood. So my question is, how does that fit your normal architectural principles? As relates to that, on the roof of that are going to be some 500 HVAC machines that are going to sit below the representative and the RiverHouse. And having been on the roofs of buildings of 225, you can barely talk to other people on those. That sound is all going to be projected to the condos on the hill, where all the apartments have balconies that people, live on. So what's going to be done to mitigate have you estimated what the sound level is going to be from what distance on those things? So that's my questions about N1. Second, related to the overall PDSP, I just have to say, Dear Matt Matuza got this whole process started with the county board by saying within a mile of a metro station, we need to concentrate density. How does it make sense to build townhouses in that area when you are going to be damaging other houses with the 22-story buildings in other parts of the site? Is there a principle that says if you're going to add density, cause the least damage as possible to the economic value of other people's properties? So those are my 2 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Reb, for those questions and comments. And I'm going to invite for the sound issue. I don't like to weigh in after comments in the end, but for the sound issue, can we make a note to address that to the extent that it's possible at an upcoming meeting?
Yeah.
To the extent that, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reb. Ms. D.
I too am concerned about the sound, so I look forward to finding out if there's mitigation for that. I think the garages on the backside of the townhomes is a better idea, but only if there's enough space for the trash trucks to get back there so that the trash is back there. Because if you don't have the cutouts, but then people still have to bring their trash to the street, that doesn't make sense. I really appreciate the county's position, staff's position on the 60-foot buffer. Obviously, I don't want a 38-foot buffer. And I have concerns about, we've talked about tree canopy, but the maturity of the trees. Like apparently JBG has gone through and designated all the unhealthy trees. But, if you're planting little 2-foot saplings, it takes 20 years for it to get back to. So I really want to make sure that that buffer remains. It's important. I do have one question in when do we discuss the county's infrastructure responsibilities in this process? So like adding another fire station, making sure that certain things that JBG won't be responsible for building are taken care of. I'd like to know when that's going to be discussed or addressed. And then to the height of the buildings, again, I have a real problem with the way we're doing this in terms of, I don't mind a 7-story building right now, but if by not fighting a 7-story building right now, I'm forced into, we're forced into a 22-story building later because you didn't get the density that you wanted now, that's a problem. It sets us up for failure, and it's not fair, for lack of a better word, right? 22 stories is just absolutely not acceptable on so many levels. And so I really don't understand that process, how we can have a complete conversation if we might, by not addressing the current lower density, ending up by default with having to put in more density later. That doesn't make sense to me.
I just want to clarify one thing. So we're establishing with the PDSP, we're establishing maximums. So I just to be clear, if the PDSP is approved and it allows 250 feet in height for the N2 building, that doesn't mean that the applicant couldn't in the future file a site plan that is, say, 16 or 17 stories instead. Obviously, we would be evaluating against what was approved, what the sector plan says, what the county board said, what the county board did, but we're just setting the maximum and noting, obviously, if there's opposition to such building height.
Okay, because no offense, but I don't trust you because they had a 16-story building there, and we were, those of us up there were okay, I'll use that term lightly, with that. And so based on whatever happened in the background, then they had to come back and change it and increase it to 22 stories. So I don't really trust the county in saying that, sure, at a later date, they can go ahead and revise it, because I feel like it's the county that put them in the position of having to create a 22-story building in the first place. So I'll leave it there.
Mr. Shinner. Commissioner Shinner, sorry.
Yeah, I'll pass. Thank you.
I don't have any comments. I just think in the future it would be nice to have like a coffee shop or a grocery store. I feel like it'd be a great add to the community. But other than that, this looks great. Thanks.
The Commissioner, we're going to go back to Ms. Osgo.
Thank you. So my name is Rosamunda Osgo. I represent the RiverHouse residents. We have 89 units, about double that number of residents. My building is not in favor of this project in its form today. And actually, as a point of reference, we have over 500 residents on Arlington Ridge who are strongly opposed to this project in its form today. Let me also mention that there was a petition that allowed people to voice their concerns, and the county has a copy of this. We had close to 3,000 signatures on this petition, which is over 10% of residents in 22202. which is quite significant. And I want to make sure that consideration is given to those people because they seem to have been completely forgotten. And that petition was given to the county on February 11th, 2022. So they have a copy of the petition and all the 3,000 signatures. So tonight I represent the Ridge House. We are pro-development and we welcome new neighbors. We are okay with the density of the project. We were okay with the density of the project before today, but we are not okay with the new density, and we are not okay with the building heights of N1 and N2. We would like to see both buildings align with Pentagon Row, which is something that has been mentioned tonight and again at the last meeting. That was never answered. And we don't want to see more than 5 stories. We understand that the builder wants density and needs to make it commercially viable, and we would like to see that density shifted to the south parcel, which was also discussed today. To talk about our owners, they tell us that they live in Ridge House because of green space, the quality of life, and all our residents who were polled have said they do not want Arlington Ridge, a historically low-density neighborhood, to look like Roslyn or Crystal City, or they would have chosen to live there. So they don't want the quality of life destroyed. And I am here today to talk about getting back to some basics. Some of the basics. We believe we are in a derailed process because the SPRC is pushing the developer to add more density than they set up to do. And JBG on numerous occasions before the county made them add density said they did not want to do it, and they did not want to go more than 7 stories because it was going to cost them too much money. However, we come here and we're given all this extra density, these 22-story towers. We're in meeting number 3 of SPRC, and the group is completely revamping the density against the residents' wishes and against the developer's own initial wishes. That does not seem right. This type of discussion belongs in LRPC, not SPRC. So with all due respect, there needs to be some rigor to this process. And question number 1 is, why are these things being discussed in number 3 of the SPRC meeting? It does not seem right. It is also a derailed process because at the outset, this development was not advertised properly to the community. And the name of the project was the Pentagon City Sector Plan, which is grossly misleading and completely disingenuous. It should have been a good faith process, and many of our residents, when polled, said they did not know it was affecting Arlington Ridge, because Arlington Ridge is not part of Pentagon City. So again, this process should have been in good faith and transparent, and it was not. Pentagon City is across the street. It is a completely different subdivision. So the Ridge House concerns and questions, the height and the new revised density. We're not okay with the building heights of N1 and N2. We would like to see both buildings align with Pentagon Row. And the question number 2 is, what needs to be done to have that investigated? Can the density be moved to the south side, which is what we're hearing, and what needs to be done to do that? Second point, we do not want more height on top of the 7-story N1 and N2. We do not want to see a compressor farm of 500 units on top of these buildings. That will add at a minimum 10 feet in height, if not more. The noise is going to be atrocious, and it will be an eyesore. And it's completely unfair to the current residents and taxpayers in Ridge House. There are many alternatives to the compressor farms. There's a new building at 1401 Joyce Street in Pentagon Row, and they have a system that is split and it's on the outside walls. So we would like to find out what other AC systems can be explored, and specifically, why can't JBG do the same system as 1401 Joyce Street in Pentagon Row? And lastly is a clarification. I keep hearing the parking lot is not used, the parking lot is not used. Nothing could be more misleading than that. I have lived for 30 years blocks away from the RiverHouse parking lot. And that parking lot was packed for years. However, over the years, we've had different owners, and they have started to charge for parking. There was no price, there was not charged 30 years ago. And as they started to charge for parking more and more, the cars parked on the side streets, spilling over to my street, 18th Street, Lynn Street, Kent Street. So the cars are still there, even though we keep hearing there are no cars, but the residents don't want to pay for the parking. And that consideration needs to be given to that. Thank you.
Okay, my comments are just about the green ribbon. I do not think it should pass through a lot of driveways. One of the benefits of having the green ribbon is to benefit the mental health and the kind of reducing stress of people who are walking along that space. And I think if you always have to worry about somebody backing into you while they're coming out of their driveway, kind of negates that the benefit of what we're doing here. Also, just from an architectural perspective, I'd love to see more done to add organic materials to the architecture, more biophilia, like a vertical garden, balcony trees and shrubs, organic materials, wood, and possibly looking at doing green roofs, which would have a lot of sustainability benefits and would also improve the view of people living in condos nearby that are overlooking over the building. Thank you.
I'll pass, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The townhouses, I think, look actually pretty decent. Thinking about it, I think that probably having the garages in the back of the south sticks probably makes the most sense because it's not the primary green ribbon. It's a secondary one. So I'm willing to flip them to put the garages in the back. It'll probably make for more effective streetscape for that new street going through. So, you know, I hate giving it up, but I think that it probably makes the most sense. The other thing is there's no way you can have, you get to figure out though how to, if we had the garbage cans would have to be in the front of the way it's being designed now. The trash bins have to be off the street. There's no place they're going to have to be in the garages. And that means when we flip it, they're also going to have to be in the back. The trash can't get picked up on the street. The C2 building, I agree with the staff. You really need to do something toward the front. Otherwise, it's really just a box right now. It's the least attractive of the three things that are being designed right here architecturally. Something that makes it a little more interesting. I think that having some sort of setback or whatever toward the top would help that. I think that the N1 actually looks pretty good. I don't mind the extra length on it because I think I was actually quite surprised that the architecture is one of the more interesting ones that I've seen for a very long building. It does break it up pretty nicely. I agree with Commissioner Peterson that probably more biophilic elements along the facades could help. But overall, the way it's done with the coloring, with the setbacks, with the balconies, it's a much more interesting facade than I've seen for a lot of these Dallas Donut type of buildings. So I have no concern about the extra length or along the facades. So thank you.
Thanks. I concur with Commissioner Lantelmi's comments on the architecture. I think C1 probably needs a little bit more work, a little more interest, and I think N1 looks great as it is right now. I also want to concur with the notion of the noise that's coming from the building. If you're up on Lynn Street, the noise from the existing RiverHouse is pretty loud, and I think the compressor farm will just exacerbate that problem. The other issue I want to raise that hasn't been covered at all is housing affordability. 22-story towers do not address the county's concerns with housing affordability. So I think, while it's great that we have the for sale townhouses, the mix might have been better to have more mid-rise on that side as well. That might have gotten some of the density down into that part of that area of the site rather than the 22 stories towers, and you may be able to bring those 22-story towers down a little bit. I realize they're only maximums, but we've seen other cases in which the maximums have become the minimums. So I think we really need to look at that carefully before we agree to that. Thank you.
I'll pass.
I'll associate myself with Jim Lantelmi's comments on the building facades and architecture. One thing I did note is that on the The north side of N1, where the green ribbon will go up to Lynn Street. The section that's down near Joyce, you've got an ADA accessible ramping that gets you up that steep slope from initial slope. And that's good, and I like that. But one thing I think that if it could be added or incorporated is parallel to that, a set of steps that goes up. Because if you're young and fit, you're not going to want to do the zigzag that's designed for a wheelchair. And if you're coming down to take the metro, as I said, if you're young and or just reasonably fit, you'll just skip down those stairs. And that is kind of what your desire line is going to be. And if you kind of have to go back and forth, you're going to be annoyed by that. So if that something like that could be incorporated, if not in this phase, then maybe when the build out of the full public space. So yeah, that's my comments.
We're going to go to Ms. Van Hine and then Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you very much. Just a couple comments. I agree with the staff concerns that have been expressed in their slides. I like the design of N1, and I think it really makes a very long building appear to be in appropriate components. That works well. Can we share some of those ideas on C1, especially the western side of C1, which is incredibly plain and it's just this big wall? That one definitely needs work. I totally support flipping the garages so that we have better pedestrian access, and I will compare that to Old Town townhouses across from Torpedo Factory that have the garages and driveways in the front. You cannot use the sidewalks because there's garbage cans and cars blocking the driveway. So please figure out how to do that. But with that, figure out what are the implications of making those changes if you can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes.
Yes, thank you. I want to associate with Commissioner Peterson's comments, and especially on the C1 and adding some biophilic elements, some terraces, courtyards, something like that, just to give it some kind of human feel to it. And also, I just sort of have a general frustration with the where we are in this process right now, that I feel like we've traded those larger building footprints and the lower density. And what we're losing is some of the aspirational public spaces, and especially the green ribbon that I feel like it, maybe turning into green shreds as opposed to a green ribbon. And I really would hate to see that. So any effort we can get back to the concept of that quantity and quality and connected green spaces, I think we need to stay focused on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Steiner. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. The only thing that I concur, for what it's worth, with the I have some strong concerns about how a front-loaded townhouse situation would comport with the comprehensive plan and with the Vision Zero policy. I think that the rear-loaded townhouse situation is much better from a transportation framework. As far as the only other comment that I would add is regarding the architecture of the townhouses. For what it's worth, I very much like them. I think that some people see them as a little too contemporary. I think the way we get a diversity of styles is by fully leaning into the vernacular at the time that things are built, and then over time we get a diversity of styles by having done that. It's not something you can really force. Otherwise, you sort of end up in this sort of Jeffersonian Disneyland that you might see in places near where I went to grad school. I've come too close to naming names. I'm not going to get myself into any trouble. So that's that. We are running late. That is on me. I apologize to people at the table and those who have stayed to give public comment for how you will be getting home a little later than you anticipated. That said, I believe are we up to 14?
Mr. Matuzik, do you remember we have, I believe online we're
down to about 9 right now.
9 speakers online, and then in the room we have 9.
18.
Sorry, 8.
We're going to be doing 2 minutes each. We are going to start with the online speakers and then do the in the room speakers.
So the first public speaker I have is Susan English.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm speaking overall in support of this revised plan because I think that the positives outweigh the negatives. I also have some concerns about the townhouse loading. I have some concerns about the minimizing of the green ribbon and especially the space at the western end of the site. And I agree that the noisy HVAC units are a legitimate concern sort of for everybody. But to have the possibility of the amount of new housing to get this in the first place, to get for sale townhouse units, to get the possibility for more committed affordable, to have more people living so close to Metro is just, to me, it's worth the trade-offs if the other things if we can work to address them. And that's, I was part of the sector plan process. I was part of the livability working group on housing. I think we need this as part of this Pentagon City vision, and overall, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. English. Mr. Matusik, do you have the list, I believe, now?
Yep. All right. Speaker number 2 online is Gudmund Schick, if I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you, Matt. I'll go real quick. I only have 3 small points. Number 1, thank you for including ownership opportunities in this updated plan. We definitely appreciate that in the neighborhood. However, like Richard and others have mentioned during this time, it would make more sense and do more good for the neighborhood if we were to repurpose some of that area with 5-story condo buildings. We'd be able to get more neighbors, more ownership opportunities, and probably more green ribbon out of it. Number 2, I didn't see any notes in any of the plan documents that I reviewed about burying power lines on the edge of the property. Maybe that's in a separate phase, but I just wanted to flag that for the team. In the Pentagon City sector plan, that is required for this project. And number 3, and finally, I am a little concerned on answering Jessica D's question about what will be included and what is going to be voted on by the board, that the now missing ghost buildings, the 22-story buildings, are going to be voted on in, I guess, principle and in quote unquote maximum heights of 22 stories, which, as we've also talked about, suddenly become minimums, and that those footprints are now set by this vote. I would like for, instead, a commitment that we have a clean vote and we're only voting on the buildings that are actually being evaluated in this SPRC process. Don't muddy the waters. Don't make this less transparent. It's already been 2 flips, right? Suddenly we had 22-story buildings. Now we don't, but we're voting on them somehow. We don't need to do that. Cut them out, make it a clean vote. Let's vote on what we're discussing. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Next speaker, Reginald Smith Jr.
We'll come back to Mr. Smith.
All right. Then we're going to go to Mr. Chris Adams.
Hi. Before I start my comment, Carrie Garcia from ARCA was not able to make it, and she sends her regards, and she'll catch up with you all afterwards. My name is Chris Adams. I own a duplex with my husband on 16th Street, which is adjacent to the townhomes proposed tonight. I just want to say I'm excited that JBG decided to go towards the for sale townhomes at that land base slot. When we were looking to buy, we found very few starter homes in the area. We were lucky to find the place we did. And many of our current neighbors on 16th Street are young families who are renting. They would love to stay in the neighborhood, but feel like there's nothing available to buy like our homes. This project is a great opportunity to expand both home ownership and affordable housing in our neighborhood near the metro. And it's replacing a basically empty surface lot that our neighbors can't even use. I know there are some today who've talked in favor of discarding the townhomes in order to shrink the height of other buildings, but I prefer the current proposal. This proposal allows density to shade gently from our duplexes up to the high rises. Also, compared to previous proposals, this proposal concentrates the high density buildings across from the metro, which aligns with Arlington's approach to transit-oriented growth. Finally, the current proposal allows for more green space, more sunlight across the complex compared to other options. I do have two specific comments on the proposal. One, on Kent Street right now, the sidewalk network ends at 16th Street. I hope when Kent Street is extended to 15th Street and beyond, either the county or JBG will ensure that the sidewalks connect to 16th Street. Additionally, I'd like to put my voice in favor of the current townhouse loading versus the rear alleyway. Our backyards are pretty small, and the lot is right up against our yards. JBG's current proposal and all previous proposals have placed the green ribbon as a buffer between our homes and the new townhomes, and we'd like to see that continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
All right, next speaker. I'm just going by the letters. JR, you still there?
Yes, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Hey, I'm just a military guy, just moved in with his family. And I think number one, I moved in from Seattle. I own a place out there still. My concerns, voting on like promise and ghost buildings and theoreticals, I would just recommend that you're going to vote on a final and complete proposal on something. So I've just seen that not go so well when you vote on part of one and then it changes later on. That just doesn't go too well. I've seen that in a couple different places where I've lived throughout my military career. My big question that I would really hope that everyone do and kind of show out to everyone, and I apologize, I'm just a simple engineer with the military, but when I see these phasing plans, I don't see any spot where the earliest actual build start for each building. And I understand that'd be like a rough guesstimate, but I see no earliest build date for any of the buildings here. So as a man who might be deploying pretty soon and a wife who's pregnant, I'd rather not get murdered because she can't sleep at night. So I'd really appreciate if we could include that in the thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Rob Fuller.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I've lived here in the area for about 19 years. And right now, I'm opposed to the current proposal. I'm not sure I really understand the density issue completely, and I wish that would be somewhere, because this continues to be a topic of discussion, and I'd like to be able to understand it a little bit more. I'm not sure that the benefits of an additional density really provides us anything except more noise, more traffic, and more stress in many ways. So again, there has to be some type of an analysis of where cost or benefit, and I don't see that really in the density. And I'm assuming it's a pretty old analysis. The other thing, I know on the PDSP, I would like to see it go before, if it's going to go before the board, I would consider that you ought to look at three options. Give them options to be able to eliminate the high rise, because the high rise makes no sense to people. And so I think if you're going to bring that out, bringing it all at once doesn't provide, I think, the decision makers enough of a, you squeeze them into a box. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
All right, next is Dee Lee.
Hi, thank you for having this meeting. I do have a couple questions and comments. I'll start with, I've been here for 27 years and thank you. We are finally getting townhouses in this area. I really appreciate that. I would like to see condos though. I'm a little sad that that's not going to be in this area. I actually live in the condos behind here, Horizon House, and it would be nice to see some newer condos in Pentagon City, not Crystal City. That doesn't count. That's Crystal City. All the condos in this area are pretty old, 1960s, 1970s. So if you guys can convert one of the apartment buildings you're building to maybe condos instead, or maybe half and half, like the building next to 1401 Joyce. It's actually half and half. It's half apartments and half condos. That would be wonderful. So maybe to look into that. I also heard the conversation about street parking and one lane behind the townhouses. Just an idea. I would maybe keep the 2 lanes behind the townhouses and also make it a one-way street. That way, one lane is for parking and the other lane is just for that one way. That'd be wonderful to add in because it sounds like we don't have any street parking within the townhouse area. I also had a question on how many visitor parking spots would there be allocated per townhouse, and is that included or is that going to be extra payment? Do we have a pre-purchase availability date? When can we start buying these townhouses? And then what's the price point estimate wise? I think I heard that correctly, but are there
30
elevators
seconds.
in the elevators in the townhouse? And then architectural and brick. I love the idea of the brick. The gray, red, white is perfect. And then as far as the 22 stories, as long as it's below the RiverHouse buildings as it is now, because that will reduce the value of the building for a representative. So please keep that in mind. That'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 more. Phyllis Papkin is next.
Thank you. I just have a comment, and it goes back to the parking and the comment that the parking lots at RiverHouse are not used. Where are the people who live in the RiverHouse going to be parking if all of those spots are taken? I mean, green is beautiful, but having lived in RiverHouse 50 years ago and looked down on it now from the representative, I just wonder, are they going to be parking on all the other streets? Or is anyone taking that into consideration? That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to interject. I think that I've heard a couple of good questions asked by individuals. We don't, when we do public comment, as a matter of process, we don't respond to questions or to points that are made. But for people who have questions like the one that was just asked, I want to encourage you to contact staff at it's A. Watson, correct? At arlingtonva.us. We'll have that. That is also on the various printed materials.
Correct.
And these are questions that often are answerable. I don't want people to think that we're just ignoring the questions that are asked. We don't answer them in public comment as just a matter of process.
Right, and we will talk about parking for the site as a whole at future SPRC dates as well.
Also a critical point. Thank you. Our next commenter, Mr. Matusik.
Last one is Mark online.
Hey, this is Mark Capistran. I just wanted to comment that over the past few years, witnessing this progression, in the beginning, this whole thing was pitched as a mythical, green ribbon and this and that. I will say the plan is, come down to earth a little bit, only 7 stories, but pretty much what we're getting is just the headaches and generic overbuilding like anywhere else. It's going to be a bunch of townhouses with driveways. We're going to have some podium stick construction, and we're going to have the traffic, the noise, condenser farm on the roof. And I think, my biggest thing in all this is these 22-story buildings. Vote on what you're going to build now. Don't vote on some mythical thing that's probably never going to happen. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Smith?
He's no longer in the chat, so I'm assuming he left.
Okay, thank you. So we will go to in-person, I believe, then.
Yeah, I just wanted to orient. Oh, Rob has the microphone, so I'll call speakers 2 at a time. So first we have Carol Weiser, followed by William Strange. And I apologize for any mispronunciation of names.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly that the proposal should go back to the Long Range Planning Committee, given the very significant changes that have been made in design and density since the LPRC process. I'm concerned that the new proposal result in uncompensated taking of my investment in my condominium. I fully renovated my unit after moving in. Newcomers say wow on entering my unit because they immediately see through the condominium to the expanse of blue sky. That openness will be completely lost when the 22-story N2 building is built. Moreover, 3 22-story buildings will create a canyon effect, blocking light to the street, neighboring buildings, and drastically changing the character of South Joyce Street. The traffic represents a hazard for the streets and the metro, since Pentagon City is already one of the busiest stations in the system that at busy times can feel dangerously crowded. Rather than increasing green space, the proposal actually decreases it. With the exception of the small James Park, the green ribbon, someone said green thread, is just walkways, bikeways, and trees along the street. The goals of neither the community nor the county are met by the townhouses. If the need for more affordable housing is to be addressed, Land Bay S should instead be planned as mid-rise buildings, as several people here have suggested. Land Bay S with no high rises on the street, so the increased density can be spread more equitably across the site in a way that better maintains the character of the neighborhood. It is the character that drew me to that area almost 20 years ago and drew me to buying my condominium 10 years ago.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser.
All right, William, you're next. After that, we have Phil Akers.
Okay. Very good. I'm William Stranges and I live in the Representative. I've lived there approximately 7 years. And I would just like to endorse what Richard Rev has already said. I'm very concerned about the height of N1 and the fact that it's going to have 500 HVAC units on its roof. I see that as being very detrimental to our environment from a sound perspective. I also am not enamored with the idea that it's a 7-story building versus a 5-story building. I'm also concerned about the infrastructure. All you have to do is drive down to Fern Street on any weekend and see the traffic backed up to get into Costco, and adding more cars and adding more traffic is just going to make that a worse situation. Infrastructure, some of the things have already been talked about in terms of fire department, police department, schooling, sewage, water, all these things. I have not seen any discussion on items with respect to some of those infrastructure things that we will have to invest in as residents of Arlington to ensure that our systems can accommodate all this inflow of density. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strangers.
After Phil, we have David Richards.
Hi, I'm a RiverHouse resident, and I just bought my condo, and it faces Washington, D.C. I want to know how is the N1 building going to encroach on the skyline views of Washington, D.C. at RiverHouse and at the Representative? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, after David, we have Judy Richards.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. All right. So I'd like to talk to a solution that needs to be found for the roof of the N1. I think that the Arlington County Noise Control Department has to find that the decibel level will be too high. And so then you will be looking for a solution. And solution lies in having a chiller and boiler down in the basement that can vent it up and through the rest of the building. We can also have HVAC built into balconies. This is typically done. It's easily done, and architecturally, it's not obtrusive. And the other thing is that we could do something like across the way at Pentagon Row. And we're talking about having roofs that are flat and kind of ugly if they're all flat. So if the HVAC system condensers has to go on the roof, we could get gaily painted roofs like across the way at Pentagon Row. And so that's what I'd like to talk. I'll end there.
I only
Thank
have
you.
one comment about the value of views from up on the ridge. Sounds like a modest thing. People are self-absorbed about views, but views represent value. Excuse me, I have an allergy problem with my voice. I'm sorry, it's vague. But the values are reflected in true values of the views as well as the assessments. So the county's going to see a diminution of its valuations in all the apartments, condos up on the ridge if the views are destroyed through a 22-story building. And these are moderately priced homes. We're not talking about wealthy people living on the ridge. Oftentimes they're elderly, and there are people like us who lived in the community on Fort Scott Drive for 25 years, and we've downsized. We also have a growing number of families with children who they're looking to buy in the neighborhood. They either grew up there or they happen to like it, and they're saving money. So you're going to see moderate income people, a lot of elderly, a lot of young families living in the condos on the ridge line who are going to lose value. And I think that should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we have Susan Bousseau, followed by David Osgo.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Boisseau. I'd like to address my concerns. I'm a property owner at Pentagon Ridge. My concerns are I'd like to maintain the iconic view of the Washington Monument, which represents part of my investment in the condo building. I'm concerned also of how the county is holding the developer to maximize the build out contrary to public comments and developers' previous intentions. I'm concerned about traffic from Kent Street leading into South Arlington Ridge Road, further complicating and increasing traffic in that area. I'm concerned about the noise from the rooftop units, which has been mentioned numerous times. I'm concerned about the increased pedestrian traffic on South 15th Street from the Green Ribbon, affecting safety and access to the Pentagon Ridge garages. I object to the increased heights of N2 and N3 and prefer that they be similar height as N1. I previously attended the SPRC 1 and was in favor of the building heights as presented at that level. I am most concerned regarding what seems to be a matter of the county going through the required process, but not truly listening to the community input. A number of our building residents have expressed similar frustration, and the county has successfully thwarted their continued participation. Also, that the future.
Thank you, Ms. Boisseau.
Thank you. I'm David Osgo. I'm a resident on 18th Street, and I also own a unit in the Ridge House. I've lived in Arlington County for close to 40 years, and I have to say for 40 years, I've seen what I regard as disastrous planning. The current problem with our runoff is just an indicative of very, very bad planning. I was surprised earlier. I believe Mr. Rev asked a question about the traffic and traffic flows and what the planning looked like. And he was told that, in fact, there was a very, very detailed plan. But then just a few minutes later, a gentleman asked a question about just, well, how many residents are going to be in this area? And the county couldn't answer that. Well, I'm not really sure how one does any kind of real planning without knowing how many residents are there. Now, in my career, I also do a certain amount of regulatory and political risk. I've done some work for investment bankers, private equity firms, looking at regulatory and political risk. And for JBG, if I were you, given how unpopular this plan currently is with the local residents, given that as a county, we're about to go through huge economic and therefore political upheaval, I don't know how your bankers would ever approve this project, and I would certainly look to have a much stronger product, better plan, one that has the support of the local community. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more in-person speaker, which is Tina Mayuz, and then online we have Alyssa as our last speaker.
Okay, sorry, I'm used to having it here. Good evening. My main concern right now is the inconsistent application of standards and, not trying to say processes in the planning process. For example, a special GLUP study, and I think a lot of the concerns that we're hearing could have been mitigated had a special GLUP study been done for RiverHouse. I saw that they put in twice for it and then it was withdrawn. And a special GLUP study was done for Melwood, a much smaller site that's only 3,500 feet away from RiverHouse. However, no special GLUP study, as I said, was done for RiverHouse. The Pentagon City sector plan has been serving as a de facto GLUP for RiverHouse. Another inconsistency I'm seeing is that a reason that has been cited for the taller buildings at RiverHouse is to concentrate density near the metro, yet you allowed the Milton that was completed in 2023 and on the same block, not 3 blocks away like RiverHouse supposedly is, but on the same block to only be 11 stories. And the Ballston 1 development, which is 3 blocks away from the Ballston Metro, is also 7 stories. So your planning commission, you're a subcommittee, could you please apply a more even standard and follow a more uniform process with evaluating your projects, not just across Arlington, but within 22202 itself. I already gave the example. That's it. Thank you. Oh, wait, I'll give you one more thing. Arlington Ridge, it's inherent in its name, Ridge. The views are inherent. And the reason there are condos and even an apartment building at the end of the ridge is so that, and not mansions, is so that as many people can benefit from those views. So let's not talk about us being whiny or spoiled about having views, or views are not entitlements. Views are valuable.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
All right, final speaker online, we have Alyssa. Okay, I'm not getting a response. No.
Okay.
We have a comment in the chat, which we can note for the record.
Mr. Watson, for the good of the order, is there anything else that we need to know about? Thank you, everyone, for your indulgence in staying late. My apologies again for the timing. Thank you to the table. And we will see everyone again in June. Have a good evening.